Released on the Sega Master System in 1992 in Europe and the Sega Game Gear in 1993 in all territories, Land of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse is a platformer and the second game of the Illusion series, following Castle of Illusion in 1990. While not directly connected to the previous games in its sequel World of Illusion and Legend of Illusion, the Illusion series of games had the theme of Mickey Mouse, and in one case Donald Duck, visiting and having adventures in a fantasy world. The games were licensed by Disney and developed and published by Sega, the only exceptions being Land of Illusion and Legend of Illusion, who were developed by Aspect. In this game you play as Mickey Mouse, who would have guessed, who enters a fantasy world after falling asleep one evening reading a book of fairy tales. The village he arrives in used to house a magic crystal which kept everybody happy. One of the villagers tell him that the magic crystal has been stolen by an evil phantom who was locked away in the castle beyond the clouds, and only the good princess, who lives conveniently in a castle high up in the mountains, knows how to reach him. Mickey, being the helpful, brave soul he is, volunteers to help the villagers and go and get the crystal back. So let's join Mickey as he goes through 14 levels of platforming adventure in The Good. Level variety in the game is great. Throughout the 14 levels, each of them have their own personality and quirks, which are evident in level design as well as looks. Each level is very good at keeping me on my toes, not knowing what to expect next, and how I would react to it. While admittedly the castle levels may have been overdone, with 4 of the levels being castles, 1 is a palace, they all looked different and played differently, keeping the adventure nice and fresh. The items you could get in game certainly added to the enjoyment of the game. Later on, Mickey can get his hands on shrinking powder, which allows him to enter small gaps and holes, and a rope for him to scale walls with. Both of these come in handy, as certain levels have secrets that you can uncover by revisiting those levels after getting the shrink powder and rope. The shrink powder does add another strategy element to the game, as you can bounce off enemies while it's small, and there's been a couple of times it's been really useful to me. The magic flute is useful for collecting the power stars scattered throughout each level, as it allows you to leave the level with the star without needing to reach the end, providing you've beaten the level before. The magic shoes will allow Mickey to walk on the clouds, which is essential for the level that requires you to use the last item, the magic beans. Revisiting levels and using items to access new areas has always been something I really enjoy doing, and this game does a very good job at achieving that. But with all good things we have the bad. While I did mention collecting the power stars earlier using the different items, their job is to increase your health by 1 star. Once you reach 5 stars, they refill your life and give you an extra try. There's 14 of them scattered around, and the only reward you get from collecting all of them is a score bonus at the end, which I thought was a little bit disappointing. For example, collecting all the Chaos Emeralds in the 8-bit version of Sonic the Hedgehog unlocked the true ending, so why not go for something like that? That would provide players an incentive to explore and put in the extra effort to find them all. This is more or less an issue with me, but controls can be a bit iffy. There were several times in my playthrough the controls were almost the death of me. Once was in a pyramid where I had to climb up a wall right at the start of the section. To climb using the rope you need to press up and a button, and I found it wasn't doing it straight away, shaving precious seconds before the spikes would reach me. Another was in a castle where I had to stack blocks to reach higher ground. The ladder in particular was the most annoying, as you had to gauge where and when to throw the block and hope for the best. You also have invincible enemies darting across the screen, so you gotta make sure you can grab the block without being hit. You're also timed, so margin of error isn't small, but the game isn't too generous. With the bad squared off, we'll move on to the ugly, where I discuss graphics, visual presentation, technical aspects, and the game's score. The one thing I can't stress enough about this game and the other games that complemented it are the graphics. For an 8-bit system, and in other cases 16-bit systems, the sprite work is amazing and gorgeous, despite Phantom looking like a recolor of the Horned King from the Black Cauldron. Level design, as I touched up on in The Good, is unique, and a lot of the enemies of the levels are new to that particular level and kept the game fresh. Even the boss fights were well done, with each boss having different patterns for you to learn in order to beat them, and not necessarily requiring you to bounce on them to beat. The game's story sequences were all very well animated, and it's clear to show that there was a lot of attention and effort put into the visual impact of this game. In regards to music, there were a few times where music was reused for a level, but for the most part music was different for most of the levels, and an absolute treat to listen to, and hearing a new song for a level was something I looked forward to in the game. So with that, I'd like to provide my final thoughts on it. Land of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse at the end of the day is a platformer. However, it's a very pretty looking platformer and has enough new content in its visual appearances as well as music and gameplay to keep players entertained. Despite having things to say about it in the bad, I would class those as minor problems attributed to how I was playing, and my personal thoughts of the game. Land of Illusion is a very solid game, and it's a go-to game if you have a Sega Master System or a Game Gear. And now for the rating. I would give Land of Illusion a large gold coin out of 10. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review.